Welcome to this week's edition of Hockey Unfiltered with the Child, Ken Campbell. I am your host, Dylan Waugh. I am Ken's sidekick. I am the Horatio to Ken's Hamlet. We're going highbrow this week because we have Elliott Friedman coming on the episode later. But before we get to chatting with Elliott, we're going to be talking about Guy Lafleur, the Minnesota Wild versus the St. Louis Blues, which seems to be a thing that's happening. Check us out on Twitter at HockeyNoFilter and stick around. So, Ken, stop burping in my microphone. How you doing?
You just lifted the curtain right away, eh? just like unveiled it right away.
Look, in fairness here, like I do that for myself, like when I screw up an intro or something like that, like you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I'm not holding you to any higher of a standard than I hold myself to.
Okay, good.
Would you say that that's fair?
Yeah, that is fair. Yeah. And the bar is pretty low, so yeah.
How's your week?
My week is a week of mixed emotions.
Oh, well, I guess that should bring us into our first topic then.
That's the reason why it's the mixed emotions. Yeah. I grew up in the 70s. Yeah. In lovely Sudbury, Ontario. Mm-hmm. And I was a huge Habs fan when I was a kid. Yeah. The Holy Trinity in Montreal is Rocket Richard, Jean Beliveau, Guy Lafleur.
Correct.
So this one hits hard. And I actually talked to a lot of guys that played with Guy the day he died last Friday. I mean, Yvon Cormier was shaken. He was rattled. Very, very emotional. Yeah, it's sad. It's really sad. Like to lose a childhood hero. Yeah. It's not great. It's not great.
So Andrew Berkshire said on his podcast, and I think that this finally encapsulated why this was so shocking or devastating. Yeah. Is because he was 70, and that's young by today's standards to pass away.
Sure is.
Yeah. He was 70. My grandmother was walking golf courses at 85.
Right.
Still, you know what I mean?
Right.
But not only was he young, but he seemed young. Mm-hmm. He still had that air of mischief about him. He's still, whereas like Jean Beliveau was an old man since he was born, right? But Guy was a child until the day he passed on.
Well, and until he was diagnosed, he looked great. People would remark on how healthy he looked, how great he looked. Yeah. And as Cormier said, we knew this was coming, but it's still devastating. Yeah. And so then you start to think about legacies, things like that, right? So, with Lafleur, it's interesting because the time that he shone brightly was actually kind of brief. He had 3 years in the NHL where he was not terrible, not bad, just good. Yep. Then he had 6 years where he was, in my estimation, the best player in the world. He was otherworldly. And then for the rest of his career, he was mediocre. But those 6 years he was the best player on what you could argue is the best, most dominant NHL team that there's ever been. Including the 5 cups in the 50s. Like that 70s team, the way they won and just the manner in which,
I don't even think that you can argue to be honest.
So what did they lost 11 games one year and 8 games the other. In the middle 2 years, they lost 19 games. Yeah. The Colorado Avalanche are, I think, still in first place overall. Yeah. They've lost 18.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that you can even argue that they're the most dominant team of all time. Just I think that Merrick said it the other week. He said, what's the most dominant team of all time for regular season and playoffs that could just go like a lawnmower, like a wood chipper, just through everything. Yeah. And wouldn't slow down. Right. And he said the same thing. And of course, Merrick's a big hockey history nerd. Yep. So if he says it, then a decent chance it's fairly accurate. But so in terms of his legacy, where do you feel that he stands amongst all-time great Canadians?
Well, it's interesting. I think in terms of the game itself, he's definitely, I'm not sure if he's top 10.
Yeah.
Because it's getting crowded up there.
Yeah.
He's probably top 20 for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of the organization itself, I know this is not going to be a consensus opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think the greatest Montreal Canadiens player ever was Jean Beliveau, and I don't think it's close.
Yeah.
People will disagree with me on that. They will maintain for now and forever that the greatest player the Montreal Canadiens have ever had is Rocket Richard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably go Beliveau, Richard, Lafleur as being 2 and 2A. To me. But the greatness of Lafleur does not, like, the numbers don't do it justice. There was the aura about him. There was the wow factor about Guy Lafleur.
Yeah.
And I actually talked to Brian Engblom, who only played with him for about 6 years. He basically said that, when Guy would get the puck, you could look up in the stands and you could just see people starting to rise out of their seats, right?
Yeah.
Like they expected something incredible to happen almost every time, right?
Yeah.
In his prime. And I'm telling you, Dylan, I was, we're going to talk to Elliott about this later, but I was a huge Habs fan growing up. I was in grade 12 in 1979.
Yeah.
Watching that game with my friends, game 7 of the semifinal against the Bruins. And so they take the too many men on the ice penalty. Mm-hmm. And this is Montreal's chance. And when Lafleur had that puck, as soon as he crossed the blue line, I knew. I said to myself, this is going in. This is going in, and Montreal's going to win this game.
Yeah.
Like I just knew it. Yeah. And that was, to me, that there's an unquantifiable, immeasurable aspect of Guy Lafleur that, and part of it, and the big part of it is that aura, that presence, that wow factor, that sense of anticipation that you were watching something really special.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that anything could happen when he touched the puck. Like, I can't remember. I think it was Pete Mahovlich. He actually was Guy Lafleur's line mate early in his career. What Jacques Lemaire came, it was a little later. Yeah. And and Pete Mahovlich was a centerman. And he has the Canadiens record for assists in a season with 82.
Right.
And he said to me, that year, he says, I got so many of those assists by breaking out, drop passing at our blue line to Guy Lafleur and letting him go in and do the rest.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not sure if it was Engblom or somebody else said, our whole power play breakout sometimes was just give it to Guy behind the net.
Yeah.
And he said, like Guy Lafleur could not play in the system-based NHL that we have now.
Yeah.
It's just Guy Lafleur was just like, give me the puck. I know what I'm going to do. I'm not sure what you guys are going to do.
Yeah.
In some ways, don't really care what you guys are going to do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take the puck and I'm going to do something special with it. Yeah. And you don't see that as much. I mean, Connor McDavid is, he's a freak.
Yeah.
He's Steve Dryden, who works at TSN and I used to work with at the Hockey News, calls him the most evolved player of all time. and he's right. He's absolutely right. Yeah. But you put Guy Lafleur in a group with guys like Connor McDavid, Bobby Orr, Pavel Bure, guys like that, Howie Morenz.
Yeah.
Those are guys that their biggest hallmark was their speed and their skill. You know what I mean? And all of those guys, every one of those guys had that indefinable, immeasurable quality about him that when he had the puck on his stick, you just, anything can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you to tell that story about the 79 goal, the very famous goal, right? The gingerly goal.
The gingerly goal. Yeah. Lafleur steps gingerly over the blue line.
Yeah. I was going to ask you to tell that story because I thought that it was a really good story, and I thought that it really typified Guy Lafleur. And the thing is that he was an everyman.
Yep.
In so many ways, right? It really reminds me of kind of like what Arnold Palmer did for golf, where it was just, he's out there, he's smoking his cigarette, and he's just, like he was an everyman, and he made people fall in love with the game, and largely the whole systems-based hockey that you were just talking about was specifically to neutralize guys like Guy Lafleur,
right?
And
hold them up in the neutral zone, yeah,
right. And in many ways, and I was thinking about this because I was asking you, I've leaned on you a lot over the last couple of days about stuff around Guy Lafleur, and I was thinking about why I didn't think of him as being the number one player in the world during his time of being the number one player in the world. Obviously, I was not alive to see that. And I was thinking because...
And I was in high school.
The same age I am now.
Yeah.
and I was thinking that it's because he was sandwiched by all of these other players. Yeah. And he was just playing on this dominant team. So Bobby Orr was right before him.
Right.
Jean Beliveau was right before him, right? Yeah. Mike Bossy was right after him,
right?
And then Wayne Gretzky right after that, and Mario Lemieux, of course, right? Or as Bill Clinton says, lummox. But my point is that it's because sandwiched in all of these superstars, right, was the greatest team of all time,
right? And
you've got Lemieux. You've got the big three, right? You've got Cournoyer. You've got Dryden.
You mean Lafleur, not Lemieux.
Oh, my goodness. My apologies.
Yeah.
You've got Lafleur. You've got the big three. You've got Dryden. You've got this team that dominated as opposed to Bobby Orr, as opposed to Gordie Howe, as opposed to Mike Bossy, as opposed to Wayne Gretzky. And it's not to say that those guys weren't on incredible teams. I mean, Gretzky played with Coffey and Messier, and you know what I mean? Like, it's not to say that it wasn't a fantastic team, because it was by every stretch of the imagination, but it's rather to say that their names were just so elevated above their teams.
Yeah, but you know what, Dylan? As you say, you weren't around to see it.
Yeah.
When you were around to see it, Lafleur was the guy. Lafleur was the guy.
Absolutely.
In the NHL. And it's funny, like people talk about.
I'm just saying, as history will remember it. They see that as the Canadians.
The
1970s Canadians is seen as its own thing, as opposed to Gretzky being seen as its own thing.
Right. Well, it's funny because everybody talks about the mystique and the magic of the Montreal Canadiens, and like Lafleur embodies it, right? So Rocket Richard, is the guy, right?
Yeah.
He has all those, he has the 50 goals in 50 games. He's the great French Canadian superstar.
Yeah.
It's funny because before the Rocket came along, the Canadians actually didn't have a bunch of really good French Canadian superstars on their team.
Right.
The French guys that were really good were guys that were Ontario French guys. Right. So like Aurel Joliette and, and all these guys. Right. And so Richard comes along. He's the guy, right? Mm-hmm. He's the touchstone. He's the cultural touchstone. He's the the new face of Quebec, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So he fades away as they're winning Stanley Cups. His career kind of fades into the background. And by the time they win the 5th cup in a row in 60, he's pretty much done. Yeah. Right. So then Beliveau is right in his wheelhouse there.
Yeah.
So Beliveau picks it up through the 60s. And I always call the Canadians 60s as the forgotten dynasty.
Right.
Because they won in 60.
Yeah.
They won in 65, 66, 68, 69.
Yeah.
You know, they were one upset in the Stanley Cup final in 67 away from winning 5 cups in a row in the 60s as well.
Right.
And they were brilliant. They were brilliant teams. And Beliveau was the guy through there. So then Beliveau gets them through. He retires after they win the cup in 71.
Yeah.
Has 76 points. Probably could have kept playing.
Yep.
You know, and then Lafleur gets drafted in 71, right?
Right, yeah.
One ahead of Marcel Dion.
Right.
So, you know, and then he picks it up. And really, I mean, no one has been able to pick it up since. You know, no one's been able to pick up that torch, French, English, or otherwise.
Yeah.
They've had some great players and they've had some great goalies, but nobody's been that, you know, that guy that you would say, I mean, Patrick Waugh comes darn close.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Patrick Waugh, they won 2 cups they had no business winning, and it was because of Patrick Waugh. So that counts for a lot, but he doesn't have that, you know, it's still not that sort of magic that you see with these guys.
Even the identity of the team changed because they were the ultra skilled Canadians, right? And it's not to say that, you know, especially like a guy like Larry Robinson was not exactly soft, right?
Nope.
But they were the ultra skilled Canadians.
But they always had toughness. Of course they always had toughness.
But what I'm saying is that then, you know, their franchise centerman was Guy Carbonneau.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now it's not to take anything away from Guy Carbonneau. I think that he was a fantastic, you know, perennial Selke player, but he wasn't that Guy Lafleur. He wasn't the Jean Beliveau and closer to Jean Beliveau, I guess. But,
not close. Not close.
I mean, in terms of mold, not necessarily in terms of greatness.
In terms of his I mean,
style.
No, just in terms of his, you know, kind of leadership, I think would be where you'd say that. Last
thing that I want to say about Guy Lafleur, there's that photo circulating recently of him sitting on that motorcycle, and it's such a great photo because first of all, it's just a little Harley Sportster, you know, and it's just such a classic, like understated, like this just could have been anybody sitting on that bike. This is just like, I swear I've got a picture of my uncle that looks exactly the same, sitting on the exact same year, make, and model bike, which I now have in my garage, not running.
Cool.
And I'm going to put back together at some point or another.
Nice.
Right. And then it just typified his kind of that duality of being a superstar and an everyman.
Right.
And finally, the amount of courage that he had to be riding a motorcycle with an open chain in big 70s bell bottoms.
Probably with no helmet too.
Well, no helmet, of course, but the bell bottoms. Because I've always thought that if there's something that I want very close to the chain of my motorcycle, it's as much fabric as possible.
It's interesting because, I mean, in talking to his former teammates,
you
know, Ken Dryden said he never saw himself as a superstar.
Yeah.
Like he never saw himself that way. And he really felt like he needed to earn his way to what he, you know, accomplished.
Yeah.
Never wanted to be treated like a superstar. Never, you know, Steve Shutt still like, and he didn't tell me this time.
And that's the name I forgot to mention, Steve Shutt, for being such a fantastic player as well. But sorry.
Great. Anyway, so he told me this story a long time ago. He didn't tell me out after Guy died, although I did talk to him and we brought it up again. It's 76 Canada Cup. Mm-hmm. They're in training camp in Montreal.
Yep.
And so their big thing is they're off their dry land thing for that night is they're going for a 5-mile run. Right?
Yeah. You wrote about this.
Not an 8-kilometer run, a 5-mile run. Yeah. That's how long ago it was. I mean, so anyways, they get this guy from the RCMP,
YMCA.
The YMCA. Yeah. He comes out. He's like this fitness consultant guy and like super fit and everything. And so he's going to lead this 5-mile run.
Right.
So they start and Lafleur just takes off.
Yeah.
Guy from the YMCA can't even catch him, right?
Yeah.
He's just gone.
Yeah.
And everybody comes back to the dressing room and they're all like in various states of disrepair because they've just run 5 miles, right?
Yeah.
And Lafleur's sitting in his stall, you know, smoking a heater. And he's like, oh, what took you so long, you know? Yeah. Another thing I want to touch on briefly, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but, it's really sad that we've lost, in the last little while, we've lost 3 all-time greats.
Yeah.
Mike Bossy, Lafleur, Dale Hawerchuk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all been in one way or another because of tobacco.
Yeah.
Bossy and Lafleur were both smokers, heavy smokers.
Yeah.
And not, I mean, that was part of their culture growing up, right? You smoked when you were a teenager in Quebec. And when you're a superstar teenager in Quebec, it's okay, right? Dale Hawerchuk, a big part of the reason why he died was because of cancer that he got from chewing tobacco. Cultural things that could have been prevented and weren't. And now we've lost, 3 of the all-time greats of our game because of it. So I just would think that, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get preachy, but if you need a little nudge there, to quit, this might be it.
Yeah. You heard the Rodney Dangerfield joke about that? My doctor wants me to start smoking so I can quit chewing gum. No, it's a good point. I mean, we learn more and more. Alcohol is also a class 3 carcinogen, and causes cancer, and so it's be careful, take care of your health, and but to your point, I mean, even up until very recently, the 2003 Toronto Maple Leafs was the worst kept secret that half of them were hacking darts in the laundry room in between periods.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, it's,
I don't think that culture surrounds the game anymore.
No,
I don't even know if there's, I don't know if there's, I'm sure a fair number of players smoke weed or take it in other ways. But I mean, you just don't hear about that anymore, that a guy smokes, because it's impossible. You can't do that and have a career.
Ozzy Osbourne said when he quit smoking that it was like a professional runner kicking a brick wall all day long. When you said take weed in other ways, I immediately thought of the Train Spotting thing where he dives into the toilet for the suppository. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, we're getting a little off track here.
That was such a good scene, though, eh?
Yeah. I have mixed feelings about that movie.
Yeah, well, it's a scary movie.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's transition to hockey. I think that was
rest in peace, Guy Lafleur.
It's a tough topic, but I don't think that he'd want people bemoaning, to be honest, from what little I know of him. I think that he wants people telling the funny stuff about his life and, these different things. So before we get on to talk about the Minnesota Wild and St. Louis Blues, check out Ken's writing, kencampbell.substack.com. You can get this full episode there. Please check us out on Apple Podcasts. We are now currently with the Hockey Podcast Network. You can check out the clips of this if you just want, 10-minute segments on YouTube with the Hockey Unfiltered on YouTube, or you can get the full episodes at Hockey Unfiltered and the Hockey Podcast Network YouTube channel. We will also be doing some live stuff there coming up. Moving on to Minnesota versus the St. Louis Blues. It seems a lock that they're going to be playing each other.
It is a lock.
Yes. Okay, fine. It's a lock.
Yeah. It's the only one right now.
I did the classic Canadian thing, which is that I kind of deprecated on something that was so obvious. But anyways, hey, I don't mean to tell you what's going on, But seems like this Minnesota Wild and St. Louis Blues, they're probably going to go at her,
Yeah, they are probably. Is Edmonton, LA? That's not a lock. No, that's not a lock yet.
No. What are you expecting from this matchup?
Wait a minute. Edmonton, LA might be a lock at this point. I'm just checking the standings because Vegas can't catch LA. Yeah, I think
Edmonton, LA is going to be interesting with McDavid, Draisaitl, two of the best offensive centers in the game. Going against Kopitar, Danault, two of the best defensive centers in the game.
Actually, Edmonton, LA is a lock, I believe. Okay. And Toronto, Tampa Bay, that we're going to talk about later, is all but a lock. It's very, very close. So so we're starting to close in on some matchups here. But St. Louis and Minnesota, that's a lock, stock, and barrel lock.
Yeah.
And it's two teams that, let's talk about evenly matched.
Yeah, you think so?
Oh, yeah. Well, same number of points.
Yeah.
They're separated by 4 in goals for.
Yeah.
I mean, they both lost last night. They were both on heaters going in, and they both lost last night. I think this is going to be a very, very intriguing series. It'll be interesting to see if Minnesota's got a game in hand, but they don't have the regulation wins tiebreaker, not even close. So if it's tie, it goes to St. Louis for home ice advantage. If Minnesota can get business done in the next couple of games, they'll get home ice advantage. So
right. So other than the home ice advantage side, how do you see this series going?
It'll be really interesting, I think. I mean, they played only 3 times this year, which I find weird.
Yeah, we both went through that a couple of times.
I went through the schedule like 5 times, and I only saw that they played 3 times. Yeah. And one of them was an outdoor game, so that's not even really a home game for anybody. Right. You know what I mean? That's so one of them was an outdoor game, and they played twice in mid-April. Minnesota, St. Louis has won all 3 games. Yep. They won the outdoor game 6-4, and then the 2 that they won in April were overtime wins. Mm-hmm. So really, really evenly matched. It's interesting, like you would have thought, when you look at the sort of the mystique of these teams or the reputation of these teams, you'd think that Minnesota would be the lockdown defensive kind of team, and St. Louis would be the free flying kind of team, free flowing team or whatever. Yeah. It's kind of the other way around. It's not exactly the other way around, but it's kind of the other way around. Yeah. I mean, Minnesota is a really quick strike, outstanding offensive team. I mean, Kevin Fiala right now is on fire. They've got a game breaker in Kirill Kaprizov. Yeah. I think basically what it'll come down to is goaltending, and I think Minnesota has the edge. I really do. I believe Minnesota has a decided edge in goaltending with Marc-Andre Fleury, and I know that Marc-Andre Fleury has had a checkered history in big games. Yeah, he really has. I mean, he's been very, very good. Yeah. I mean, he made a save in late in Game 7 of the 2009 Stanley Cup Final on Nicholas Lidstrom that won the Stanley Cup for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's also turned over the puck against Montreal and lost a series. Yeah. So he's got a checkered past, but I really do believe that it's going to come down to that. Him and Brizgalov's series was like next shot wins. Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. But I really think it's going to come down to that, and I really think that the Minnesota Wild have the edge. I don't think St. Louis's goaltending is great. I just think it's going to come down to that, and I think Minnesota would probably have the edge. So here's the thing. St. Louis is walking into this as a very balanced, very two-way team. Yeah. Minnesota's walking into this as all offensive. Right. And now the old adage goes, it's a football saying, but we use it in hockey sometimes. Offense wins games, defense wins championships. Right. But by their advanced metrics, St. Louis is not very good defensively. Okay. They are the 6th worst at 5 versus 5 expected goals against per 60 in the entire league. I believe you. Right. I don't understand you, but I believe you. I get it. Right. And then they're the 15th worst, so middle of the pack, actual goals against per 60 in the entire league. Right. But the thing, so to put this in the context here, Minnesota's letting in 2.5 goals against per 60 right now. How much of that is goaltending? Sorry, St. Louis is letting in 2.5 goals per 60. Minnesota's letting in 2.3 goals against per 60. Okay. So Minnesota is actually playing defensively significantly better, both by the expected goals against and the actual goals against, than St. Louis is. Okay. It kind of blows the narrative a little bit out of the water, at least calls it into question. In terms of goaltending, Ville Husso's playing fine. Yeah. Right? I could look at their team save percentages, and at which point you've got the St. Louis Blues have a team save percentage of 0.92, and the Minnesota Wild have a worse team save percentage. Yeah.
of they're right next to each other. 0.92 and 0.92.
There you go.
So they're saving goals at the exact same rate throughout the course of this year, but Minnesota's advanced numbers are looking better, and they're
Well, you know what's interesting, Dylan, is we're gonna talk to Elliott a little later.
Yeah.
And I mean, we taped it before, so spoiler alert.
Earlier.
Yeah. It's later in the podcast, but we taped it earlier. So, and he talked about how much the game changes in the playoffs. Yeah. And I think that's going to be a huge factor here.
Yeah.
Will St. Louis be able to grind it out?
Yeah.
Against Minnesota? Will their big, imposing, and difficult to play against defense core be able to make life miserable enough for Minnesota that they take away their will to live? You know what I mean? I think that's going to be huge, and we know it's going to happen. So we know it's going to happen. We know that the game changes in the playoffs. It always does. I wish it didn't, but it does.
Right.
So that's going to happen, right? So St. Louis is going to have that sort of edge or advantage. Mm-hmm. So now the question is, how does Minnesota respond to that? Yeah. How do they adapt and adjust to be able to be successful in that kind of game? Yeah. And I think that's going to be a big question. That's going to be another sort of real important sort of factor in this series.
I always think about the Los Angeles Kings against the San Jose Sharks. And I remember one of the in between the bench reporters, I forget who, during that series. This is a long time ago.
Was this 14 when San Jose went up 3-0 and LA came back and won it?
Yeah, it's exactly that. And I remember the in between the bench reporter saying that LA just looked exhausted trying to chase San Jose around the ice.
Right.
San Jose was just dancing around them. And he said that the LA players were getting back to the bench, completely sucking wind, bent over their sticks. They just couldn't. And then it was almost like LA just went, oh, we don't have to chase them.
Yeah.
If we stand here, they'll come towards us, and then we kill them.
Yeah, and or we just get the puck and cycle it endlessly and keep possession of it, and we don't have to worry.
Yeah. So
that was incredible, that series. I remember Daryl Sutter after Game 4. It may have been even after Game 3, between Games 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And he just said, like he just said, yeah, they're in this situation. A lot of pressure. Oh my God. Like, man.
Daryl Sutter's got the best quotes. Like,
he's outstanding.
When John Gibson was brought in for Frederik Andersen and I guess Los Angeles versus the Ducks.
Yeah.
And this was right before Freddie Anderson got traded to the Leafs. John Gibson was brought in, played a fantastic game, and Daryl goes, oh yeah, it's maybe the best goalie I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he's pretty good, and he's like bringing his fastball this year.
Man.
Like, he's had a ton of them this year.
Oh man, you know what I wouldn't give to see him as a third McKenzie brother? It'd be Bob, Doug, and Daryl McKenzie. I would give anything. That's all they're missing is a straight man in that bit.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Let's see if we can get them all out of retirement.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on to Elliotte Friedman?
I just want to talk about a couple of things real quickly. OHL draft is Friday night.
Yep.
Michael Misa will go first.
Yep.
The exceptional player. Malcolm Spence will go second. Nathan Villeneuve will go third to Sudbury, and then it becomes a bit of a crapshoot from there.
Yep.
But a lot of good talent.
Yep.
Misa got the exceptional status, as we all know. And he'll be going to the Saginaw Spirit. So that'll be interesting. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, we talked a bit about Edmonton, LA. I think, is there anything, nobody's done anything really stupid lately, eh? Trying to think. Oh, tip of the hat to a player.
Yeah.
By the name of Hunter Drew.
Okay.
Played his first NHL game last night.
Oh, that's right. I saw
for the Anaheim Ducks.
For the Ducks, yeah.
When he was 17 years old, he was playing junior C hockey. Never drafted in the OHL, never drafted in the NHL. He's a defenseman. He moves to forward this year. leads the San Diego Gulls in scoring as a forward and probably penalty minutes too. Like he's a pretty tough guy.
Yeah.
But just a kid that, came not literally. He didn't literally come out of nowhere. I hate when people say literally and they actually mean figuratively.
Yeah.
Who came out of nowhere figuratively.
Yeah.
But just, just a great story, right?
Yeah.
Like just a great story. I mean, 23-year-old kid, he's playing his first NHL game, and who knows whether he'll play a second NHL game. He probably will. But, I mean, I just talked about all this exceptional status stuff and getting drafted into the OHL.
Yeah.
The OHL has 15 rounds.
Yeah.
Like they pick, well, I mean, if each of them picked one player in each round, it would be 300 players because there's 20 teams.
Yeah.
So like they pick an obscene number of players.
Yeah.
And there are guys who don't get picked.
Yeah.
Who end up
playing junior B, junior C, prep
junior
school.
C, junior A,
Yeah.
going up, and then the next thing you know, they're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Adam Oates is in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
I mean, so it's not over. I mean, and I said this before, like I think young players like that have the harder road.
Yeah.
You just have to have a better plan B.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
don't abandon your plan B.
Yeah.
If your plan B is to go to school, go to school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you don't have the luxury of knowing that you're going to be an NHL player in 3 years.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're ever going to be one. But you might.
Yeah.
So have a really good plan B, but don't give up the ghost. I talked to Mike Johnson.
Yeah.
He played midget AA hockey.
Right.
When he was 18 years old.
Yeah. Not ideal.
No, not ideal. Went to play junior A for, was it Aurora or somebody?
Right.
Had a really, really good year. Got noticed by Bowling Green.
Yeah.
Scholarship at Bowling Green. And then the next thing you know, he's getting signed by the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah. So it's funny because this actually dovetails. I'll tell you what I said to a dad of one of the kids that I coach.
I would have said, shut up. That's what I would have said. Shut up.
If you were the dad or me?
No, I would have said to you, you telling the dad, shut up.
Oh, you kidding? You don't know this dad.
You're insane,
he's
sir.
one of the nicest guys in the world.
Doesn't matter.
He's hired me as a coach, so he can't be all smart.
No.
But no, he said something to the effect of, his son's like 13. He said something to the effect of, well, I guess a lot of people really know whether they're making it or not at this point already. And I said to him, the people who say that are the people who have a financial vested interest in telling you that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The people that are trying to make their U16 AAA team that much more important, when in all honesty, shout out to one of my students, KW, who's 15, I think, and just moved up from AA to AAA.
Yeah.
Just came out of nowhere, walked in and uprooted
despite the coaching that he's getting.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Despite the coaching.
Yeah.
Could be because of the coaching.
No.
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, like, one of our students got cut. I was telling you this on the phone.
Yeah.
Got cut from his AAA team, tried out for another one. His name's Justin. Tried out for another one and is now playing a year up.
Yeah.
In AAA.
Yeah.
He tried out for a AA team or something like that. Anyways, and he's now playing a year up in AAA.
Yeah.
Like it really, like you said, don't abandon your plan B. Have realistic expectations. The prep school route is a great route.
Yeah.
That's, instead of going to OHL or something like that, that gives you many more options down the line than playing in the OHL.
Yeah.
But, don't let somebody put a limit on you at 13.
No. But don't even listen. Don't let somebody put a limit on you at 13, but don't let somebody make you feel like you're special or you're God's gift to hockey when you're 13 as well.
Yeah.
Enjoy the game. Enjoy the experience. Enjoy your teammates. Enjoy winning. Learn from losing.
Yeah.
Have fun. Play something else in the summer. And that's a big one for me, is like, you hear all these elite people say, oh yeah, really, we should, the kid should be doing something else in the summer, until it comes to their kid and they feel like he's going to get left behind. Then it's like, yeah, you better play spring hockey. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just at that age, don't listen to anything. Yeah. Don't listen to all the people who are telling you you're so special. Yeah. And don't listen to the people who are telling you you're too small or you're too slow or whatever. Yeah. Just enjoy the experience. You're playing the greatest game in the world. Yeah. You're young. You're having a great time with it. You're traveling. You're going to tournaments. Yeah. Enjoy that. Get the most out of that. Yeah. Be the best you can be at that. Be the best person, player, and teammate that you can be. And everything else will take care of itself. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, all right. Shall we get to Elliott? That went a lot longer than I thought. Anyways, yeah, I guess we probably should. Okay. Probably should get to Elliott because, quite frankly, people probably want to hear him more than they want to hear me. Us talking about midget AAA hockey? Yeah. All good. Yep. Thanks for joining us, Elliott. I know it's really, really busy right now for you. I know what you're going to do probably in the next week. You're going to kiss your wife and your son goodbye and say, see you in 2 months. And it'll be a hectic time for you. So I guess, first of all, Elliott, what does the next couple of months look like for you?
Well, Ken, the standard line I use, and my wife hates it. She always thinks it's so stupid whenever I say it's a good 2 months for her boyfriend. And but she thinks it's so stupid whenever I say that line. The number one thing is and you've been in that time before. I love it. It's the best time of year. That's the number one thing. Like there's a lot of work, and there's, especially in the first couple rounds, there's a lot of double headers and late nights. But it's the hockey playoffs. It's phenomenal. The one thing I always laugh about was there was one night, it was several years ago, and I can't remember if it was Dallas, Vancouver, or Vancouver, Anaheim. But the first night of the playoffs, and I was still a ringside reporter at the time, but the studio crew got like a triple overtime game, the Canucks, and either the Stars or the Ducks. I can't remember who it was. Yeah. And I remember those guys telling me, it's like, you're so excited and you're going to get some late nights, but if it happens the first night, it just kicks the crap out of you. But I mean, because the thing is, you got to get your rest. Like for example, if I'm late, like I like to get up in the morning if I can to take my son to school, because if I don't take my son to school, then a lot of days I won't be able to see him come home. Right. You don't get to see him at all. But if you're getting home at 1:30 and you're getting up at 8, like you're not necessarily getting good rest. So you either have to nap during the day or something like that. I think the other thing too is that, I have a rule I like to keep, and that is, can you tell people 2 things every broadcast you don't know? Or they don't know. And I think it's easy to do that when you're on once or twice a week. It's a lot harder to do that when you're on every night. So I like the challenge of that. But the key thing, no question, is you've got to make sure that you get your rest. Absolutely.
Yeah, to me, Elliott, I mean, the playoffs are obviously a magical time of the year. I mean, if I were to introduce someone to the game, I wouldn't sit them in front of the Stanley Cup final. I would sit them in front of the first round of the playoffs, because that is the most chaotic, wonderful, surprise-filled, intense time. Like by the time the finals come, I mean, obviously there's a lot on the line, and we've had some very good finals in the last few years, but I mean, they're on fumes by that time. But when you start that first round, those first couple of nights of that first round, I don't think there's anything in sports that matches, and I'm not a huge basketball fan, but March Madness included. I just don't think there's anything in any sport that matches the intensity and excitement that you get in the first round.
Well, I love the first round of the playoffs, Ken. I'm not one of those please like my sport guys, so I don't really compare a lot that way. But I think it's phenomenal. I think that, I remember talking about it sometimes. I think that, this year's a bit of an anomaly in the Eastern Conference. There's no question about that. We've never seen a year like this before. But generally, teams get in and everybody takes a deep breath and you kind of reset. But I also don't think, Ken, that there's a sport that changes more from the end of the regular season to the playoffs than the NHL does. And I know a lot of people beat up the officiating standards because of that. I think it's almost as much about the player. I think it's more about the players. Like, Ken, you've been around a long time. You have seen, like, I thought Greg Wyshynski had a good story this week about scoring, where Doug Armstrong and Al McInnes talk about, used to go to certain places on the ice and they'd be cringing because you think that someone's about to get killed and you don't get hit there anymore. Yeah. Like, you can go to the middle of the ice and not get clobbered. You can go to the front of the net and not have to face 160 Darian Hatcher cross checks.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that does change when the playoffs starts. I think the players say, okay, this is different now. We're going to do things to each other, and we're going to put our bodies on the line in the way that we don't always do in the regular season. Nobody takes nights off in the playoffs unless you think you're gone. So I think that, to me, is the thing that makes it so exciting too, Ken, is that the players' mentality changes from game 82 to game 1 more than in any other sport.
Right. And the ones that do it the best are the ones that get through.
Yes, that's true.
What I mean? And the ones that can do it, like, I mean, look at Montreal last year. I mean, the effect that a guy like, that their defense had on Ben Sherratt. He was a beast in the playoffs last year for that reason, which is exactly what you were saying.
Hitting people in the dirty areas?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
There's always one person, like, it's so funny, Dylan, like last night, Dave Amber is doing highlights and he said someone's going to the dirty area, and because we're 5 years old, Anthony Stewart and I start laughing, and Dave is looking at us like, how old are you guys? Can you be a little bit more mature?
No, because we're 12.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's good that we have a guy like you shepherding us through the playoffs, Elliott Friedman. I've always enjoyed your work, and you earn your paycheck in the next couple of months for sure. So.
Well, thank you, Ken. It's nice. I really appreciate it. But like I said, and like you said, and Dylan knows, and everybody out there knows, it's the best time of year. So it's great. It's an honor to be part of it, really.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, hockey fans, feel the action on the ice like never before with Draftkings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up the points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus restrictions apply. Go ahead, Dylan.
Well, going into tonight's game, Vegas seems to be playing a game called The Elimination is Right, because they're as close to being mathematically eliminated as possible without actually going over currently. But whether they win or lose tonight, I'd like to talk about them a little bit. You've talked about the Leonard situation and described it as being an evolving one. Are you able to tell us the latest of what's going on with Robin Leonard?
Well, the thing is, I mean, we'll see what happens tonight. I still think it's evolving because, look, Kelly McCrimmon hasn't talked yet. Yeah. The other players haven't really said much. Robin Leonard hasn't talked publicly yet. And all we're getting is cryptic comments out of Peter DeBoer saying, there's a lot of guys playing hurt. Right. So I think that what we're looking at here, Dylan, is when things get clarified on Vegas's season, and as you said, it could happen tonight, then I think we're going to get a lot more clarity. Like, again, last night, like I was up, I was watching their game. When it was over, I got a note from the person who I think, a person who I trust and is very connected to this. And he said, still evolving. Like that's what he said, still evolving. And so like I'm very comfortable in everything I've reported. I think it's the other reporting in the aftermath has shown that it's generally been pretty accurate. Yeah. That Leonard informed them on Thursday night that he was going to have surgery, and there were a lot of conversations about what that was going to mean in the days after. But I still don't think we know everything yet. And this is combustible, and I think it could potentially get worse before it gets better. Yeah. And, the number one question that I think a lot of us have is, Robin Leonard's got 3 years left under contract with Vegas. How is this all going to work? Like, did you guys watch the Vegas game last night? Did you guys watch it?
I did.
Yeah. So at the end of the game, did you see all those Vegas guys go to Logan Thompson and like he looked like he was he looked crushed.
Yeah. Well, the same thing against San Jose as well.
Yeah.
Rallied. Yeah. After the shootout loss against San Jose. Yeah.
And like to me, that's a picture saying a lot of words. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
We're not all in there. We don't know everything, but I have a feeling there's still going to be a lot that's going to come out of all of this, and it's not all going to be pretty.
No, it's not. And Elliott, that's sort of the micro picture. I wanted to talk a bit about the macro picture in terms of, like, this is remarkable to me. The Vegas transformation is remarkable to me. I mean, as quickly as they went from being the misfits to being a Stanley Cup contender, well, not quite as quickly, but in a very short period of time, they're wearing the black hat now. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who want to see this organization fail. I talked to an agent who said, and whether it's fair or not, said that, Kelly McCrimmon's problem is he still thinks he's dealing with junior hockey players and that he can treat them a certain way and sort of dispose of them the way he sees fit or whatever. But there's something wrong there, Elliott. There's something fundamentally wrong in Las Vegas. They're in salary cap hell. They're not going to make the playoffs. And I actually talked to Jeff Merrick about this a couple of weeks ago, and I attribute a lot of it to chasing the shiny new toy, and they've got to stop doing that. Like, they've just got to stop, every free agent that's out there, every guy that's out there for trade, they've got to get some team chemistry. They've got to get a lineup that's secure and, feels like it's playing for one another. I just feel like it's a mess there right now.
Well, there's no question that it's a mess right now. I mean, I don't think there's any debate about that. I think that there's a couple of things here. Number one, no expansion team is supposed to be as successful as Vegas has been.
Right.
And you remember the way they used that expansion draft against the other teams. Mm-hmm. And they could. And they used it very smartly. They took real advantage of some teams. And, well, I mean, you're competing to win the Stanley Cup. On some level, you have to do that. And, it created a lot of hard feelings. And I think a lot of this goes back to the expansion draft.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because some people are saying, oh, you guys hammered us really good there, huh? Well, good on you.
Yeah.
I absolutely feel that some of this goes back to that. I think another one that, teams make tough decisions all the time, or hard. Like, remember St. Louis and Patrick Berglund? He was a day late getting his no trade in, and they shipped him to Buffalo.
Right.
These things do happen. But I'll tell you this, Ken. I think you're right in the sense that there's been a lot of churn on players there. And I remember when the rumors were going that they were about to sign Pietrangelo, you could see that they were going to have to do something. And that weekend, because the news started to break on a Friday, and if I remember correctly, didn't sign till a Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
I couldn't believe the amount of texts I was getting from Vegas players or people connected to them saying, like, who's going? Mm-hmm. And I think that was a big one. Like, it was a lot more than normal. But like, I do think another one, Ken, that has reverberated in hockey circles, I think, was Gerard Gallant. And Gerard Gallant's a really popular guy, and they had a verbal deal on an extension, and they made the coaching change. And I think there's a few people that really didn't like that. Yeah. So every organization does it's like life, right? Every work environment makes decisions that piss us off and that we don't think are right.
Right.
And so it's Vegas's. I think going back to the expansion draft, because they used it so well on teams and made them look so good and other teams look bad. I think there are people who've looked at this and said it's just desserts. But I think all those other things you're saying are true too. The funny thing about it, though, guys, is that I've had a couple GMs say to me that they like to push the salary cap limit too, and they're looking at what's happening with Vegas, and they're like, "That's a warning for all of us."
Yeah,
now, I don't think they hope it would never happen to them like this, but there are a few teams saying, there by the grace of God go I, because we would be in a similar disaster if we had all these kinds of injuries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My question is, just to follow up on that, is how common is it for players to reach out to you to get an idea of what's going on with management in a situation like that? Or is management more open with their players? Like, it just seems like bizarre that a player in the NHL with an agent and all that has to get their sources from the same insider that us schlubs do.
you know, Dylan, I think that there's certain times where there's a lot of rumors fly around. It doesn't happen that often, but it happens. I would say it happens more around trade deadline and free agency than other times. Like, people will send me notes saying, what are you hearing? Or I'll report something and they'll say, well, we know there's always things that are reported and there's more under the surface. What else can you tell me? One situation is, I remember a few years ago when Kevin Shattenkirk was traded from St. Louis to Washington, there was a Washington player who texted me right away and said, I can't get any answers from the team. Am I in the deal? And, it turned out he wasn't. So I think it happens more around those times than it does normally.
Well, I mean, if I want information on what's going on in the NHL, Friedge is the guy I ask. If I want an acerbic comment, I'm probably the guy I ask.
I would say this. I think there's a lot of great reporting in the league right now. Like, I think the quality of reporting is as good as I've ever seen it in my time as a consumer or a professional. Yeah. I think whether you're interested in people who talk about rumors like I do, or people who break down the game, either X's and O's or statistically, like others do, I think the quality of reporting around the league is really good. And if you don't think it's that good, you're not looking. I really feel that way.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Elliot. And I mean, the world has shrunk in so many ways, right? Like our world in terms of, the number of outlets, but you're absolutely right. There is some great reporting going on. Can I move on, Elliot, to another team that people, really, really make a cottage industry of disliking in a lot of ways, and that's the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, it's not locked in yet, but it's very, very close that they'll be playing the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round of the playoffs. And I'm going to lay out to you what I think is going to happen, and you tell me what you think. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to lose. And I don't think it's going to be a close series. I think it's going to be 5 or 6 games at the most. And I think that the Tampa Bay Lightning won that series last week when they did then they had their 8-1 beat down on Toronto. And of all years, this is the year where it's really not their fault. You know what I mean? Like, Kyle Dubas has put together an amazing team. He's put together the best regular season team they've ever had. His Kasha acquisition, the Bunting acquisition, the Giordano acquisition, all great acquisitions. And this is the one year where I think someone might pay if this happens, but I'm not sure that should even be the case.
Well, as we tape this, guys, or we do this, it's they're 4th in the league.
Yeah,
I mean, you're right, Ken. I will say, I will say this: I am getting wide spectrums of conversation on this Tampa-Toronto series. I have people who say this is the Leafs' year. Tampa's exhausted, and they're going to beat them. And I have people like you. Like, you have to understand. Like Ken, you're from Sudbury, right?
Correct.
Yeah, were you and your friends Leaf fans growing up?
Not
or
at
were
all.
Canadians?
I was the biggest Montreal Canadiens fan you will ever find.
So so Dylan, where are you from?
Toronto.
Are you and your buddies Leaf fans?
My buddies are, but I am the biggest Montreal Canadiens fan.
Oh God, what's going on in this podcast? So I grew up in Toronto, and my buddies, I still have buddies who were huge Leaf fans.
Yeah.
And they think the Leafs are really good, but they are terrified about this series. And you know why they're terrified about this series?
Because all Leafs fans are nihilists.
Yes, that's true. But hey, they come by it honestly. Like, they've
been given a lot of ammunition.
You know what they're worried about? They're worried about. They say to me, they're really funny. They said to me, Stamkos is going to come to Toronto and he's going to kill them because he's a Toronto guy. And, it is funny. I do think that if it is Tampa, Toronto, as it's going to be, that the Lightning players are going to say, we love our captain and we're going to win the series for him.
Interesting.
Yeah. I really do. I think that's going to. Now, look, here's the biggest challenge for Toronto. It's Tampa's battle tested. They're going to be motivated, and they have the best player in the league in the playoffs. Like that's what it is. Like Vasilevsky is the best player in the NHL in the playoffs until proven otherwise. I'm with you. I think Dubas has generally made really good moves this year. The one that didn't work, Richie, they erased.
Yeah. Yep.
They've added depth on their blue line, depth of the kind they needed. I don't know what to tell you. I like Toronto too. I just think this is the worst possible matchup for them.
Yeah. To me, it's almost like this is the year where you go, oh shit. Everybody had 100 points in the East. It's a crapshoot. And you know what? These things happen. But I guess my question to you, Elliott, is can you do that after this year? Like last year was the year where maybe somebody should have paid. This is the year where somebody might actually pay, and it's not going to be fair.
Well, you know what I think, Ken? I think it comes down to, let's say Toronto loses the first round. It's how they lose.
Right.
If they go out in 4 straight and meekly, then goodbye. But if they lose in 6 or 7 really hard fought, nasty
couple
games,
OT games,
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't
either.
Kenny Holland told me, between the cups in 2002 and 2008, I guess. He said they sat down every day and they talked about their team and they kept hearing about how they needed to change it and how they needed to move some of these guys out, and they never did. Mm-hmm. And they were rewarded for it because they knew they were a good team. They know what the playoffs is all about, right? Like it's so crazy once you get in the playoffs. So many things have to go your way. And I remember even talking to John Cooper before the year they set all the records and lost 4 straight to Columbus. We were talking right before the playoffs, and he said, well, look, he said, if you could bet on the Stanley Cup and you could take us or the field, you'd probably take the field, right? Because it's so unpredictable. So I just think, like I said, I just think this is one of those years where if they do lose, it's not, you chalk it up to that was a tough opponent in a tough conference, and we believe in what we're doing here, and we're going to stick with it.
I think it all depends on how it goes. And the other thing too, Ken, I think that will determine the future of players too, who plays well and who doesn't. Like, I don't think we're just talking about, the front office or the coaching staff. I think we're also talking about, who's on the roster. But, I watch them, and I know they got pounded in that game against Tampa, but they kicked the crap out of Tampa a couple of weeks ago, 6-2.
They did. Yeah.
So I try not to overreact to one game or the other. But, look, I think we all recognize there's a lot on the line here. A lot on the line.
Yeah. Should be fun. Go ahead, Dylan.
So, switching gears a little bit, You've mentioned a few times that your votes are for sale. But
I've heard you say that, Elliott, on TV, on the TV.
Yeah, I said that.
But if you were to give any player a discount on that vote for the major awards, Hart, Norris, Calder, which players have caught your attention?
Well, first of all, I guess I should say for the record, my vote is not really for sale.
Damn.
I think this year, I think it's Yossi for the Norris. I'm voting Sider for Calder. I think. Like my battles are due Monday. I'm starting to really go over it.
Too. Yeah.
I'll say this. Last year, I thought the hardest vote was the Norris. This year, I think the hardest vote is the Hart. There's a group of 8 I've looked at for the Hart, and in no particular order, it's Matthews, it's McDavid, it's Yossi, it's Gaudreau, it's Shesterkin, it's Kaprizov, it's Huberdeau, it's who am I missing? Crosby.
Crosby. You know what? I want to put Stamkos into that conversation.
It's funny you say that, Ken, because I did Tampa's daily radio show with Dave Michigan and Greg Linnell, and they asked me about Stamkos, and I said, what I do is I put together a long list and then I whittle it down.
Yeah.
Stamkos is on my long list. But I just couldn't put him in that top 8. So. You're insulting. It sounds like you're insulting people. I'm not trying to.
Right.
No, Ken, it's so funny. I was looking at Stamkos' number last night. Like, people forget, for everything he's been through, he's still over a point a game player.
Oh yeah. And I do think that part of what goes into that sentiment for this year is what he's doing this year. Having overcome the last couple of years, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like he played himself onto the Olympic team this year.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anybody who thought that he was a lock to make the Olympic team. Played himself onto the Olympic team. He scores, he's moved to center and gone back to center, with, points been kind of in and out and they've had some injury troubles. He scores goals, scores big goals, does it early and often. And I don't know. I just think he's been a huge part of their regular season success this year. Mm-hmm. He's not the best player in the league, but and again, it comes down to the semantics of the definition. But you're going by the guy that's been most valuable to his team. I would argue that nobody's been more valuable to the Tampa Bay Lightning than Steven Stamkos has been this year.
I'm not going to argue with you on that. Yeah. The other thing too, Ken, is that I think we've been reminded a lot by how popular he is among his peers.
Right. Yeah.
And that counts for something. That means that you're doing something right.
Yeah. On your on the Hart Trophy. I don't know how. I just don't know how you can't give it to Austin Matthews at this point. I don't like that. That's my feeling, is that I'm not sure how you can't give it to him at this point. McDavid's right there. But Austin Matthews, for example, he's had 23 of his goals have been goals that have put the Maple Leafs ahead in games. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, I look at those kinds of goals. I look at sort of when they're scored and sort of the context of it. And this is a guy who, he doesn't get a lot of cheapies, No. He's got a few more empty net goals this year, and I would actually argue that increases his value, because now they feel comfortable putting him out when they have a 1-goal lead, and they want to, because I do believe empty net goals matter in that respect. But he's a big time scorer, best player, most valuable, whatever you want to say. I'm just not sure you can not give it to a guy who's got 60 goals. Like, who else? Ovi's had a 60-goal season in the salary cap era.
And Stamkos
had one. That's it. So so that's quite a feat. So
yeah, I got to tell you, Ken, I'm not going to disagree. I mean, it's probably going to be Matthews.
Yeah,
atop my list. The way I look at it though is that McDavid's got 61 points in his last 36 games, as Edmonton's season was on the ropes.
Yeah.
Like that, it's interesting. Like, someone sent me a tweet last night. I thought it was a really good tweet. I actually liked it. He kind of compared McDavid to Mike Trout, as in that the guy is so good that the biggest problem is you're comparing him against himself. And if he doesn't do anything ridiculous and spectacular, you kind of underwhelm him.
Yeah.
And he's still got a career high in points this year. And but he's got 61 points in his last 36 games. Yossi, Nashville, I don't even know where they are without him. Goodrow, the thing about Goodrow is he does it at even strength. And I think in this league that really, and this is a league that's having its highest scoring year in
25
years
since 95-96.
And Goodrow is leading the league in even strength points. Like I think that says something. But but the thing is, I know I'm going to be pissing people off because Kaprizov, I think, is deserving. Huberdeau, I think, is deserving. I mentioned the top four, my top four on Saturday night. I said it was in no particular order: Matthews, McDavid, Yossi, and Goodrow. And I had people based in the States who were saying you're just shafting Shesterkin. Somebody here is people here are going to be left off the ballot, and it's going to be people are going to be screaming bloody murder.
Hey man, good teams get beat out in the first and second round too.
Yeah.
So, and it's not a reflection on them; it's a reflection on the field. I agree with you 100%.
I always like to write, if I don't vote for someone, it's because I hate you and your team.
Yeah, exactly. And all of your family. I've heard you. I've read that from you before. Yes, I hate you and I hate your team too.
and everyone you love. Yes.
Well, we all know, Elliott. If you're not pissing people off, you're not trying.
You're not doing your job.
You're not trying. Come on. Okay. Norris.
Do you mind if I mention something on the heart before we get out of here?
No, I don't want you to. But go ahead. Go ahead.
No normally means no, I don't mind. But English is hard, Ken. So we'll
words are hard.
Words are hard. I thought that Huberdeau had a very interesting statement when he said that Matthews should get the Hart Trophy, and I thought that was just him angling for the much more coveted Lady Byng.
I don't know about that, Dylan. Yeah. The thing is that's kind of hockey, right? Like even I guess Matthews even said he wouldn't vote for himself or something.
Well,
like that.
Of course, yeah.
Well, he's not allowed. That's not an option. So I'll appreciate that if the players are voting on the Hart.
You know what though? Joe Thornton would have been a guy that would have voted for himself. I remember he said, I remember one time he was talking about the Sharks and he goes, "Yeah, Patty Marleau's a great player. Brent Burns is a great player. I'm a great player."
Yeah. No, because I'll tell you, years ago, I remember my last year at the Score. Eric Hinsky was a rookie and Josh Phelps was a rookie. And Phelps had a big end of the season. I was interviewing both at the same time. And I said, who would you vote for Rookie of the Year? And Phelps says it's got to be Eric. And Hinsky goes, I agree. I think it has to be me. I was like, I wish I heard this more often.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Well, with the Norris, and we've got about 12 minutes left, I think, by my estimation. So we'll try to get through this. The Norris, I think you've made it pretty clear Yossi's your guy.
Yeah.
Not Cale Makar, eh?
No, I just think that I just think this year that I just think Yossi this year is he carried them. They're not even and I don't even think it's got anything to do with Makar's on a great team. Look, are we going to punish Connor McDavid because he plays with Leon Draisaitl? No, that's stupid. Are we going to punish Austin Matthews because he has a great setup man in Mitch Marner? No, that's stupid. Yeah. I don't punish Cale Makar because he plays on a great team. Part
of the reason of which is he's playing for it.
Because he's playing for it. Absolutely.
I mean?
I just think that Yossi this year was otherworldly. I mean, he could have had 100 points. We don't see that from defensemen anymore.
He's got 93 right now.
Yeah, he's gonna just miss it.
He's got a game to go. He still might get 100.
They'll feed him like crazy.
I also think too, Elliott, that the Norris, for whatever reason, is. I'm not going to say it's not a meritocracy, but it's kind of one of those ones. I mean, there is an exception, like Adam Fox comes out of nowhere and gets it as an entry-level player, but it's one of those ones that you kind of have to work your way up to winning, you know what I mean? I mean, look at Mark Giordano, it took him all those years, Al McInnes all those years. Like, that's one of those ones where it's more of a maybe it's not your turn yet, young man. You know what I mean?
I think that has been the case in the past for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I was gonna ask if you think that like it's finally Shea Weber's turn for a Norris.
Yeah, okay. Silly boy. Okay, so Cider for the Calder, I agree with you. Although, I mean, that's going to be a tough one too.
Well, I think for me, the toughest thing is filling out the ballot. I mean, there's Bunting, there's Raymond, there's Zegras.
There's Tanner Jeannot.
Tanner Jeannot's a great one too.
Yeah.
Who is who like I was looking at, and the fact that he wasn't called up until late kind of ruins his chances. But Sean Dursey,
he's been outstanding.
Like he's been unreal. Like he still
qualifies, eh? He still qualifies, eh?
I believe, he's a rookie. Yeah. Like now you're making me gaslight myself, but I'm gonna go check because the worst thing I want to do is. But like I'm watching, like because I'm looking at this, and you're.
As you talk, I'll look.
Now, and I'm looking at this because like the Kings, to me, they got kind of lost and ignored a little bit this year, but they're not. The fact that they made the playoffs is an incredible story.
With the injuries they had.
Yeah, if you would have said that Doughty would have played 40, 45, 50 games and they still would have made it.
Right.
I wasn't.
Yeah, I don't think. Okay, he's 23, so he gets it. But the age. Absolutely. He hadn't played a single NHL game before this season. So you are absolutely right.
Doughty played 39 games this year. Who would have thought the Kings were making the playoffs at 39 games?
Yeah. That's a great one, Elliott. That's like one of those ones you slide in at number 5 to make it look like it's like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, you know what the problem is with me too is that games played has always mattered to me in rookie voting. Because I think when you're a rookie to play 82 games, it's a really hard thing. So you've got Jeannot, you've got Raymond, you've got Cider, you've got Bunting, and I can't remember who the other one was we mentioned, but Zegras. So that's a tough thing for me to vote for Dursey, but it's not his fault. He wasn't called up.
Right.
So
I
don't know. It's a really tough call. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? Cole Caulfield might have won it if he had been
started earlier. Yeah,
it started earlier, but he's tailed off too as well. So
yeah,
good stuff.
Before we get out of here, just one last one for you, Elliott. One of our listeners on Twitter, J Mick in the 613, asked about the implications of Arizona moving to a college arena. Specifically, a lot has been made of the short-term move, but how are things going with their long-term plans? And does this have any effect on Gary Batman's future expansion plans?
I don't know if we're going to be expanding anymore. We're at 32. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about expansion. The thing is that like my father used to be in the home building business, and he would always tell me there's nothing worse than dealing with governments because everything happens at their pace, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so you're sitting here, you're probably thinking NHL Arizona, we've got to know if we're going to have a building here, and you're at the government's pace. There's nothing you can do. And so look, I think there's a lot of people here who are unhappy about it. Like the ticket thing, the prices, I don't know what people expected. Like when the NHL and the Coyotes were saying that Arizona could make more money, you knew they had to be charging pretty high for their tickets.
Of course.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it could be an incredible atmosphere. I've had people say it could be a great atmosphere. I just don't know if it's a good look for a pro league to have a 5,000 seat arena. So
it's a terrible look for a pro league.
And
it's a terrible look.
And the other thing too is that, you want to grow. How do you grow with a 5,000 seat arena? So, I mean, we'll see, but honestly, Dylan, like we talked about Vegas before, like this story is not over. This one in Arizona, it's not over. There's more to come.
Right. And I mean, I mean, the players will have next to no say in this. They'll have to play wherever they're told they're going to play. So I don't think it'll be a PA thing. Elliott, with Arizona, I would argue that Arizona's problems are not because of the market. They're not because of where they play. There's no difference between Phoenix, Arizona, and Tampa, Florida, other than, and it starts at the top all the time, is ownership and the way the team is run. The Arizona Coyotes are where they are because they have had more drama surrounding them than wins. They've been a very bad team for a very long time, and they haven't given people any reason other than, a very hardcore small fan base to love them. And that's what it is. Like it's all performance based. And I think it's not only performance based, but it's ownership based. It starts at the top and trickles down. And until they get this right, Arizona's going to struggle, for time immemorial.
I think you're mostly right, Ken. Just people who know the region better than me say that the location is a big problem.
It is. I actually spent a month in Arizona just before the pandemic, and my wife and I are going to go back there next year now that things have opened up, because it's great. I mean, I remember I went one day. The Oilers were practicing in Scottsdale, and I got Connor McDavid for like 15 minutes by myself, and I'm thinking, what? And Connor McDavid comes out to talk to me, and the local guys are there, and they were like, "Yeah, we're good. We don't need him today. We're good. You can have him." So that's what I love about being in Arizona. But the rink is a problem because it's west, and you're driving into blinding sun for like 45 minutes before you get there. So it is a problem, but I agree
with you. Like Vinnick is a difference maker. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, he's a complete difference maker. I remember talking to him, and it was like, you paid more for the Marriott Hotel across the street than you did for this team and this arena. And he said, yeah, well, the hotel was making money.
It's a good answer.
It makes sense.
Answer. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you, Elliott. I don't think there's any expansion on the horizon. I think they're pretty well maxed out at this point. And so that's really kind of a moot point. But I do think that the whole Arizona situation is one that bears watching, to say the least. And I think you're right. We're not done with this one yet.
Not over.
Exactly. Listen, Friedge, 11:43. You want it to be out by 11:45. So here we go. Yeah.
I gotta go on with Merrick in 20 minutes, and I need to completely reset and refocus for that craziness.
Well, of course you do, because he'll talk about Sisyphus and some kind of obscure philosopher, and you got to be on your toes with Merrick all the time.
Yes, you do.
But listen, Elliott, you know what? We got our little podcast here, and when we can get a guy like you to come on, it's a big feather in our cap for us. We appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Always do. And quite frankly, appreciate your friendship as well. Thank you.
Well, the feeling is mutual. And I think it's important in the sense that you guys are the future of where a lot of us are going, right? Yeah. Like it used to be that we had to be hired by the big companies or the big hockey companies to be able to cover the sport. And now what we're all learning is that the internet has opened it up to everyone, and we have different avenues and different ways we can be successful. Yeah. And it's important that especially young people see that. So I'm happy to help and keep killing it, guys.
Thanks so much for sticking around to the end of this episode. Check out kencampbell.substack.com. You can check us out on Twitter at HockeyNoFilter. Please, if you have a chance, to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And of course, check out the Hockey Podcast Network YouTube channel, as we will start doing some live stuff there soon. Take care and see you next week.